thank you for joining us. I'm Joy.
And I'm Laura.
And this is The Witches of Letters, a supernatural rewatch podcast.
Buckle up for part 4 of our Halloween 2025 listener lore bonus episodes.
Every Friday in October, in the run-up to Halloween, we're bringing you local lore that has been sent in by our listeners, and also some of our own. So, Laura, do you want to tell them about the ghost sound waves from the last episode?
Oh, yeah. So if you
She
listen
hates
to
every minute of this.
if you listen to the last Halloween episode, so part 3, we were haunted.
Yeah.
Because I was talking about a ghost. I'm not going to say her name again. And Joy thought she saw her behind me, which freaked me out. You could tell that I was freaked out. I lit a candle. And then Joy felt something weird at her house, and then she had to pull cards about it because it was scary. And then when I was editing the episode, Joy's sound waves were all like super weird, and it was like there were sound waves when she was being silent. It was like there was someone else talking on her track when Joy was not talking.
It legitimately felt like somebody just tapped my hat.
Don't, Joy, stop it.
I can't help
being
it.
Haunted.
I can't help it, guys.
So yeah, Joy has a baseball cap on now today, and she's just had it touched.
It's my Scream. She's had it touched. Sounds so wrong. It's my Scream one for everybody because you can't see it because we're not a video podcast. So I've got this sewed hat that says like "Final Girl" and "Bad Bitch" on it, and it's got like a Scream movie patch on it that says "Let's watch scary movies together." And it's my favorite hat, and it just definitely felt like when we were talking, somebody tapped on the right front part of the hat, and nothing touched it. That was super weird.
So yeah, so now we're haunted again.
Good job, me! Yay!
Yeah, I'm seriously reconsidering the ghost story Christmas episode.
She's seriously reconsidering covering ghost stories with me at all.
I have like a few lined up ready as well.
Yeah. Let me just
let us know if you want us to do ghosts at Christmas and get haunted again.
I was like, is anybody here? And the pendulum is like, yeah. Is it good vibes? What do you mean no? You're not allowed to be in here if it's a no, get the fuck out. Thank you. Goodbye. I literally have salt right here. Like not even normal salt. It's like sacred salt from this part of the sea that's supposed to be blessed by mermaids or something.
Okay, well you better throw that around a bit. Do a Sam.
I am.
And Dean, I guess.
I made a salt circle all around me. Yeah, there's nothing in here now. I just checked again. I'm good to go.
What about me?
Okay, let's see. Is there any spirit in Laura's house at all? Yes. Is the spirit in Laura's home her house spirit and friendly? Yes.
Okay, that's fine then.
Yeah.
So, shall we start our stories then, Joy?
Yes, please. You go first.
Yeah, I'm going to go first today because I think I've got more than you. So, my first story is from a listener on our Instagram post, and it is Knuckers.
That's a fun word.
And this is from Sussex in the UK. So, Sussex folklore. So, do you know what a knucker is?
I assume it's similar to Knockers. But I could be wrong.
Well, it's a water dragon.
Oh, very different.
So a knucker is a water dragon that lives in the bottomless ponds or knucker holes of Sussex in England.
Ooh.
And the word knucker comes from the Anglo-Saxon word nickor.
I was about to say that sounds very Anglo-Saxon and weird.
Which means water monster. And there's some varying appearances. So some sources call the knucker a wingless water dragon. So it looks kind of like, I think it's the picture I'm going to put on the post actually. It looks kind of like a weird snake thing, like a dragon with no wings kind of slash cross with a snake. And others say that it does have wings. And some describe it more as a sea serpent type creature, which I'm guessing are the wingless versions because they look like I said, like these snake crossed with dragon things.
So what's interesting about that is the way that we perceive dragons changes depending on where you are in the world.
Ah,
So in some places they're more like it's spelled worm. It's worm, but it's spelled WIRM. And um if you look at Asian dragons, for instance, like dragons represented in Chinese culture, you're gonna not see them visibly having wings or anything like that. They just sort of look like
yeah.
what you're describing. And it's similar to the
Oh, yeah,
worm.
they don't, do they?
No, it's
Their
like that
dragons
kind
don't
of
have wings.
representation. Yeah. I think worm is also an Anglo-Saxon word, but I bet it's pronounced verm or something weird. But yeah, so I just think it's interesting and like looking into my ancestry, I've noticed that in ye olden days, people did also in fact travel and intermingle with each other. So I am like a mashup. And when I'm looking at these old school eras, like the Anglo-Saxon eras, it looks like there's a lot more intermingling than people like to think that there was.
Yeah.
I think it was more of a melting pot than we've been led to believe. Um, so I can't help but wonder if the reason why our dragons come in these different forms, but the beliefs about them tend to be pretty similar, is because of the intermixing of different peoples.
Hmm. Yeah, there were varying reports of the appearance. So yeah, but kind of legends and lore kind of do that as well, don't they? They kind of change over the
Yeah,
years as well.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I did find some reports that said that they were scaly and like breathe fire, which is more in line with dragons that we from like legend.
yeah.
Um, so according to the dragon wiki page on fandom.com, it says that the most famous Knucker lived at Lyminster. And the Knucker apparently caused a lot of trouble, consumed local livestock and even villagers, and so it was decided that they were going to slay the monster. And a number of different legends recount how this was done. So there was two that I found. It kept saying three, but the second and third were basically the same story. And I think
Mhm.
this one says there's two. Yeah, this one's got two. So these are the two main ones. So one version has the dragon slain by a knight errant after the King of Sussex offered his daughter's hand in marriage to whoever rid them of the beast. Legend says that after marrying the princess, the knight settled in Lyminster, and his gravestone, the Slayer's Slab, can be seen in Lyminster Church. That's a cool name for a gravestone.
The Slayer's slab. Buffy
Yeah.
music plays in the background.
And it's a graveyard.
Yeah.
So that's the first, which is very like knights and kings and princesses.
And here, have my daughter because you did
Yeah.
something that I wanted you to do. So I'm going to pay you with girl.
Pay you with a person.
Yeah.
And then the alternative legend has the dragon outwitted by a local farmer's boy called Jim Polk or Jim Puttock. So when I said there was three versions, there's like literally the name is the only thing that's different. So I was like, well, that's the same.
Hmm.
So yeah, so he's called Jim. So he is said in some versions to be from Wick, and after the mayor of Arundel offered a reward. So he killed the dragon by cooking a giant poison pie for it, which he took to the Knucker Hole on a horse and cart. The dragon ate up the pie, horse, and the cart, and when it had expired, the boy returned and cut off its head. And in some versions, he then dies himself, probably of the same poison he used on the dragon, though this is possibly a later addition designed to explain the Slayer's slap, because that does actually exist.
My theory about it actually is that it's a class situation because in this version of the story, if he's not a knight and he's just a farmer, he's a
Yeah,
kid,
just like a normal
a
boy. Yeah.
child farmer. And this child farmer who's poor and not one of the chosen people because he's poor, right? Because in this time period, people who are wealthy were considered to be chosen by God to be wealthy. They were the special ones or whatever, and it was the divine right of kings. Yeah. So the king was chosen by God. And if you have a kid who is outperforming all of your special chosen by God people, suddenly the peasants are going to start questioning with if this story goes around, why am I listening to you? There's actually a lot more of us than there is of you. Eat the rich.
Yeah.
So, um I can't help but wonder if that one got changed because of that element rather
Yeah,
than
maybe.
because that would make more sense to me.
I like how stories like develop over time and like legends become legends and stuff.
Yeah.
So then I had a little bit of information about knucker holes themselves. So because it was interesting. So
Mhm.
folklore says that a knucker hole is a hole of infinite depth, and there are reports of knucker holes at various places across Sussex, including Binstead, Sompting, Worthing, and Lancing. But the most documented I found was the one at Lyminster. And according to a YouTube video that I watched about Lyminster that mentions the knucker and the knucker hole, the water is clear because it's fed from an underwater spring. And although they mention that divers had recorded the depth of the knucker hole there to be about 30 feet, there is a legend that says that this 6 bell ropes from Lyminster Church were once tied together and lowered into the pool and it didn't reach the bottom.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And then I found out a little bit more about a knucker hole at Binstead. It's an article called "The Binstead Knucker Hole and Green Man" on binstead.org. It's on in the show notes. It says Binstead farmer Luke Wishart writes that he called it a knacker hole. A knacker hole in Burgess's Field, south of Goose Green, was a mythical hole like the one at Lyminster, which houses a dragon, said to be the home of dragons and bottomless. His father, Ernest, had looked into this in the 1920s, and there was talk of water witches. Luke, however, being of a scientific frame of mind, arranged to place our irrigation pump into it to test the water capacity. The pump ran dry in just over 10 hours, and we could see the bottom, but it filled up rapidly as soon as we stopped pumping. We didn't have any dragons, but they might have escaped overnight. And then it goes on to say that another theory is that the knuckers hide if the pond is drained in the clay beneath like the
Hmm.
water. And there's theories about the origins of the small, round, bottomless, perpetually cold, water brimming ponds. And these are varied. So some say they were made by the knuckers themselves, others that the knuckers adopted pre existing natural formations, most probably created as sinkholes. And it just goes on to say, certainly there is something dangerous, not to say uncanny, about them. And I just thought I could totally picture Sam and Dean running around one of these villages hunting a knucker.
Yeah. In a quaint little village,
Yeah.
having tea, flirting with locals.
Yeah, exactly. So I
Yeah.
like the idea of that. And also, one little fun side note: when I was doing my research for this, I was looking up how to pronounce quite a lot of the villages, and I was going on YouTube, and I found so many um like YouTube accounts of that. They're usually older men who walk around the villages and give the history as they're walking, and it's so wholesome and cute, and I love them.
Aw,
I found so many of them.
that's adorable.
Yeah, so that's the knuckers. I like dragon lore.
I like dragon lore too.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, my first legend is the legend of the Broadwater Midsummer tree in West Sussex.
Ooh, we both went Sussex.
Yeah. So, I'm pretty sure that this tree is, if this is the one that I'm thinking of, is one of the ones that I've signed the petition for to protect it. Um, it was a few years ago, but we see here more and more, which is very sad, uh, this attempt to remove old and ancient trees sometimes. And if
Yeah.
local people don't speak up for them and do things like sign petitions to protect the trees, then we could lose some of these incredible giants. So I know here in my neck of the woods, there's been quite a few petitions in recent years to save trees and to make them part of, I think it's either the RHS or one of those similar organizations has kind of put it all together. But I'm sure the name of the campaign is Save the Giants. And it
Oh,
is
cool.
a long list of heritage trees. And basically, it's granting heritage status to these specific older trees so that they can't just be cut down, so that they're protected.
Good. Yeah.
Um, Definitely give it a Google if you live over this side of the pond. Sign if you see any that come up. Like, it's really good to just go on change.org and type in like save the tree or save the trees, and you'll usually find loads.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
if you do that wherever you are, you can start being active in your area to just save trees by something as simple as a signature.
I like that. Love trees.
So, basically, in this legend, skeletons rise from its roots at midnight on Midsummer's Eve, right? And dance around the tree until dawn, then return to the ground with the sun's first rays. Which, that's so sick. I love that so much.
I wasn't expecting skeletons, and I'm
the dancing
skeletons.
Yeah. I lulled you with tree petitions, and then I came in hard with dancing skeletons. So this was first recorded in 1868 by Charlotte Latham, which good for her. Okay, because we need more female folklorists. And I love it when I come across the female folklorists from like the 1800s going off and defying people who are like, a woman's place. And she's like, shut up. I'm going to go out here and get some folklore. It's my favorite thing ever. So the story claims some locals had witnessed this ghostly dance, and it reflects a belief in the midsummer solstice as a time to commune with the spirit world. The legend and its origin. So the story centers on an ancient oak tree located in Broadwater near Worthing, West Sussex, which is believed to be over 300 years old. The ritual. On Midsummer's Eve, the spirits of the dead were believed to emerge as a group of dancing skeletons. The skeletons would dance and dance and dance around them.
Is there
their
music?
Movements.
Are they just dancing to nothing?
Well, they just describe it as you hearing their bones rattling. So if you see it or hear it, it's kind of like a dark Morris dance is what I'm picturing. So then they would sink back into the earth as soon as the daylight starts hitting the roots of the tree. So you know how like in Hocus Pocus when the sunlight hits them and they turn to stone because their spell is over? I think it's kind of like that, but they just sink back down into the ground.
Cool.
So Latham's account included a man who claimed to have seen the spectral dance, describing it as a frightful apparition. They find it very interesting because of the pagan connection, because the midsummer solstice used to be one of the most auspicious times to connect with the spirit world. The tree was, this is the one that I was thinking of. The tree was threatened with felling in 2006 by highway agencies due to safety concerns. But there was a campaign to save it, led by local historian Chris Hare, who successfully saved the tree, which was significantly cut back but remains a significant local landmark. Today, the tree continues to be the focus of interest, with local gatherings reportedly occurring at the tree on Midsummer's Eve to observe the ritual of the skeletons.
That is cool. Now, so someone said that they're scary to look at. I was picturing happy dancing skeletons. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Well, I think it would be really cool. And I would picture them to be happy dancing skeletons. But I think if you literally saw skeletons emerging from the roots of a tree to dance.
Yeah.
And just heard the rattling of their bones, it would probably be pretty spooky, if nothing else.
In my head, though, they're the Funny Bones skeletons. Do you remember those books? Did you have Funny Bones?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Like there's two skeletons that they're very domesticated. There's like two skeletons and a skeleton dog, and they live in a house and they go on little adventures. And they were my favourites favorite books when I was little.
I've been robbed. I loved Castiel the Friendly
Ghost. On
a
dark, dark night, down a dark, dark street, in a dark, dark house, or something like that. It's like a rhyming book.
That sounds awesome.
For little kids.
Oh, that sounds awesome. In my head, it's like spooky, scary skeletons and shivers
it's that
down
vibe.
your spine. Yeah, that kind of vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, they're the skeletons I was imagining.
Oh. But yeah, no, it sounds amazing. I think we should add it to the road trip.
Yeah, it does. It sounds cool.
It sounds a lot more interesting to me than a lot of other pagan midsummer festivals. Like I've done some, but that one actually sounds like incredible and epic. I want to see skeletons dance.
Yeah, I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's your next story?
Oh, my next one. I'm excited about this one. This was also sent in by a listener, and it's of Zombie Road in Missouri.
Ooh. I should have made it a zombie sound instead of a ghost sound. It should have been like sound.
So, Zombie Road also known as Rock Hollow Trail, is located in Wildwood, Missouri, and about a 30-minute drive from St. Louis. So I read 3 articles about this. They're all going to be linked below. But I decided to just read you one as it covers the history and the alleged hauntings as well. And I wouldn't be able to do a better job writing it myself, to be honest. So I will say, though, first that my research has told me that this is just an urban legend. But Halloween's about spooky times, spooky stories. I love an urban legend. So
spooky.
Yeah, love it. So this article is by St. Louis Ghosts, who do ghost tours in the St. Louis area, and it's called The Hauntings of Zombie Road. So it says, located half an hour drive from downtown St. Louis is the small town of Wildwood, Missouri. There's a strange winding trail known as Zombie Road. This 3.6-mile stretch of road dates back to when Native Americans resided on the land and has developed an infamous reputation for being haunted. Visitors have reported seeing ghostly apparitions of children and shadow figures, as well as hearing unexplained cries. Unseen forces and other poltergeist activity have even attacked some. The area is closed off at night due to the treacherous nature of the path, but many have experienced ghostly activity in broad daylight.
I feel like so far it should be called Poltergeist Road.
Oh, yeah, I think it's called Zombie Road because of one specific thing later. So the story behind Zombie Road was constructed in the 1860s to get the railroad to the Merrimack River.
Mm-hmm.
As railroad and waterway shipping declined, it fell into disrepair. Even after it was paved in 2010, the pavement quickly cracked due to the narrow, winding nature of the trail, giving it a distinctly unkempt look. Hikers can also see remnants of the old railroad tracks, which are rusted and covered in debris. The overall eerie vibe of the trail has made it ripe for ghost stories, and some locals are adamant that the stories are true. So it does sound creepy, doesn't it?
It does sound very spooky.
So the history of Zombie Road, it's officially known as the Rock Hollow Trail and is sometimes called the Al Foster Trail. The path that makes up the road is potentially hundreds of years old, having been made by the indigenous people of the area. In fact, the largest Native American burial mound in the United States is thought to sit underneath Zombie Road. When it was designed for railroad services in the 1860s, it became known as Lawler Ford Road, and at that time, the Union used the road extensively throughout the Civil War. The Zombie Road was the site of numerous tragedies due to train derailments, with engineers and railroad workers losing their lives. And in 1876, a woman named Della Hamilton McCulloch was hit by a train and killed along the road. And as far as how Zombie Road got its bizarre name, its roots go back to the 1950s when the trail was used as a lover's lane for teenagers. It also developed a reputation as a place to drink and do drugs, leading to local authorities closing it off at night. And police are so serious about keeping people off the road after dusk that trespassers can be fined up to $1,000, which non-believers joke is the scariest thing about Zombie Road. So, I mean, that's quite a lot of fine to get just to go on that road. So they must be, they're definitely trying to keep people off it.
Yeah.
So the hauntings. For decades, countless unexplained occurrences have been reported along Zombie Road. Hikers have claimed to have an overwhelming sense of dread and unease along the trail, even in broad daylight. Witnesses have also heard disembodied cries and the voice of an old woman who yells at those who walk the trail. Some believe it's the unquiet spirit of Della Hamilton McCulloch, who was killed by a train 150 years ago. The cries could be those of rail workers who died violent deaths during the multiple derailments along the road in the late 1800s. Other ghostly sightings include shadow figures that hide in the dense woods surrounding Zombie Road and a blue light that hovers over the old rail line, almost as if a ghost of a train is haunting the site.
Ghost train.
Yeah. And in 2007, the Booth brothers filmed a horror documentary called Children of the Grave at Zombie Road for the Sci-Fi Channel. According to Christopher Booth, there is a shadow nest of ghost children who haunt the woods surrounding the road. And the documentary
a shadow nest
even captured photos
as a term. I'm just picturing lots of ghost kids and a giant ghost nest.
Yeah. And they all
and at night they just like come out of it, climb down the tree and haunt shit.
Yeah. And apparently the documentary crew even captured photos of the child entities who roam the forest. Ugh.
Spooky. Laura does not like spooky children.
No, I don't. So then it says turning skeptics into believers. One of the most chilling first-hand accounts of Zombie Road hauntings came from a woman named Alex Matozek in 2013. Alex was in town visiting her aunt, and the two decided to go horseback riding along the trail when unexplained things started to occur. I was not a believer before, totally a believer now, Matozek said regarding the existence of ghosts. As Alex and her aunt made their way further along the trail, they heard a terrifying noise. We hear this high-pitched squeal, almost sounding like it was from a teenage girl or a young woman, Alex explained. As we hear this sound, I feel this sharp pain on my leg. Alex removed her riding boot and rolled up her pants to discover deep scratches on her legs. There was no
Oh,
explaining the scratches, since her pants and boot would have protected her leg from any branches or animals that might scratch her, and the incident left Alex and her aunt thoroughly spooked.
that's scary. That's like
Yeah,
down in Scotland. There's some really haunted places in Scotland, and one of my old friends from uni went on a ghost tour there, and people on the ghost tour got scratched.
yeah,
Um, and they were not plants for entertainment because she had seen them like join and people had talked a little bit about it before. And because like I can be a bit skeptical about stuff like that, figuring they
mhm,
could have some actors thrown in the mix just for like to keep it the
yeah,
reputation going. But this person is like pretty smart, and so it was just like so convincing and so scary that if you go down to these certain places that are very haunted in Scotland, like they have such a reputation for scratching you, and that
mm,
is what, like almost worldwide a sign of a malevolent haunting.
yeah. That's scary. Scratches are scary.
Yeah. And it's like,
Yeah.
how would you explain your leg being scratched up? Like you
No,
hear a
through a
phantom
riding boot.
scream. Yeah,
Mm,
exactly. You hear a phantom scream and then through something that, you shouldn't be able to have anything happen to you. You're
no.
you're suddenly in pain and then you have scratches and they're impossible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really scary.
Yeah, I feel like that's such a scary way to discover the paranormal. I always feel bad for people where their introduction to the paranormal is a really scary one because there's good stuff that happens too. And it's just like, that's just unlucky.
Yeah, it is. Um, and there's just one more bit on this article that says the haunting story of the zombie killer. So this is the bit about the Lover's Lane and why it
Oh,
got its name.
okay.
So one of the oldest ghost stories dates back to Zombie Road's time as a Lover's Lane in the 50s. The story goes that a patient escaped from a nearby mental hospital and hid in the woods surrounding Zombie Road. He would kill local teens who came to the area and allegedly continued his killings after he died and became a ghost. This unknown individual is known as the Zombie Killer. While there's no evidence he ever existed, he has been associated with the shadow figures often seen by visitors hiking the trail, and some go as far as to claim that he appears as a giant entity in the woods. So that's very typical urban legend kind of sounding,
That
isn't
is
it?
very typical urban legend material. You have your escaped patient, you have people
Yeah,
making out in a place where they're not supposed to be doing things, and they're punished by being killed.
yeah.
That is like straight out of urban legend.
um, and then I went to read some encounters. So I wanted to see if there was any people who claim to have seen stuff there, like in on Reddit and things.
Yeah.
Um, so I went to see if there was any first-hand accounts, and I did find a couple of comments on other posts. So people had put, "Has anyone had any experiences of zombie road?" Those kind of posts, and these were comments on them. So, and they were all on the St. Louis subreddit though. So one person called STL History Buff, so St. Louis, I'm guessing History Buff.
Mhm.
This is from 8 years ago. It says, I used to go down there all the time as a kid. It's a nice bike path now, so it's not scary anymore. It wasn't really that scary before. It was just a dirt trail that led to the Merrimack River. Ghost stories that I used to tell or hear. I heard there used to be a mental facility out there and a bunch of patients got loose and ran amok around the area. Story was some of the spirits lingered in the area. So that sounds like the same story as the zombie killer, but just
Yeah.
they've made it more.
But why did they call it the zombie killer? Because surely that would be like the revenant killer
Yeah, because he didn't like come back to life. Well,
or the
unless he
ghost
did.
killer.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, more of a
There's
ghost
no
killer.
zombie in this zombie road.
Another story is I used to hear a lady would scream at the end of the trail, and we did hear her scream a number of times, but never saw anything though. Um, and then there was another comment by, I don't even know how you say this username, Kate Chamart from 3 years ago. I went back in high school, probably like 2008. We walked down until we ran into what appeared to be a miniature railroad track. Once we got there, all of our flashlights started to flicker, so we decided to head back. Once we got kind of close to the entrance, we passed two older ladies walking down the path with gas lanterns. This was like 1 a.m. I can't recall if this actually happened or if it was our imagination after the fact, but they seemed to disappear from view oddly quick. Like we turned around expecting to still see them, and they just weren't there. All I remember about the location is the entrance was in the parking lot of some school. So that
Ugh.
sounds like, because they had lanterns, maybe they were
Yeah.
ghosts.
Yeah, that's
Um,
spooky.
yeah, so yeah, I agree with you. There's not actually any zombies, but it does sound kind of cool. I like it.
Yeah. I had a quick Google while you were reading that to me to see if there are any mental institutions near the river. And it was pretty like basic because I could only do it for a couple of seconds. But if the search was actually accurate, because it was an overview, so it might not be very accurate, but if it was actually accurate, there's a lot of different institutions along the river. So there's a possibility that there could have been one that's been there for a long time, and I wonder if that's where that particular urban legend spawned
Came
from.
from. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that institutions make people feel very uncomfortable, and mental health makes people feel very uncomfortable and scared. So it gets used as urban legend story fodder.
Yeah. I feel like people just, like, even though it's very rare for people to escape, it's like near where my brother used to live, they built a new prison.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a whole uproar about that. And it's like, that's what the safest place to probably be is next to a prison. Because if a prisoner did escape, which is very unlikely to happen, they're not going to hang around, are they?
They're gonna leave.
Yeah. So it was like, yeah, so a similar kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So speaking of prisoners and criminal stuff,
Ooh,
I'm moving on to the Flying Dutchman. Now, I did say that I
love
wasn't
ghost ships.
before. I was like, I'm not going to do the Flying Dutchman. Everybody does the Flying Dutchman. But I found a way to make myself happy talking about the Flying Dutchman. Also, it is cool. It is cool.
Yeah.
So I feel like I found a way to make this more individual and more me flavored as a story. So I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. So, the Flying Dutchman is a legendary ghost ship, allegedly never able to make port, but doomed to sail the sea forever. And in a minute, when I give you some facts about the origins of it, you're going to be like, good, good, they deserve it. So, give me a minute to get there. The myths and ghost stories are likely to have originated from the 17th century golden age of the Dutch East India Company, which we're going to refer to as the VOC because
Okay.
that's what the historic records like. It's the overall company name. Also, Dutch East India Company is a mouthful. So from here on out, VOC. All right. So this was a huge Dutch maritime power. The oldest known existing version of the legend dates from the 18th century. And according to it, if hailed by another ship, the crew of the Flying Dutchman might try to send messages to land or to people long dead. Reported sightings in the 19th and 20th centuries claim that the ship glowed with a ghostly light. In ocean lore, the sight of this phantom ship functions as a portent of doom. It was
Uh-oh.
commonly believed that the Flying Dutchman was a 17th century cargo vessel known as a flute. I don't know how to say that. Fluyt. The first known print reference to the ship appears in travels in various parts of Europe, Asia, and Africa during a series of 30 years and upward, printed in 1790 by John MacDonald. And it says, the weather was so stormy that the sailors said they saw the Flying Dutchman. The common story is that this Dutchman came to the Cape in distress of weather and wanted to get into harbor, but could not get a pilot to conduct her and was lost, and that ever since in very bad weather her vision appears. The next literary reference comes in chapter 4. No, sorry, it's in Roman numerals. In chapter 6 of A Voyage to Botany Bay, also known as A Voyage to New South Wales, attributed to George Barrington, 1755 to 1804, and says, that he had often heard of the superstition of sailors respecting apparitions and doom, but had never given much credit to the report. It seems that some years since the Dutch man of war was lost off the Cape of Good Hope, and every soul on board perished, her consort weathered the gale, and arriving soon after at the Cape, having refitted and returned to Europe, they were assailed by a violent tempest nearly in the same latitude. In the night watch, some of the people saw, or imagined they saw, a vessel standing for them under a press of sail, as though she would run them down. One in particular affirmed it was the ship that had foundered in the former gale, and it must certainly be her, or an apparition of her. But on its clearing up, the object, a dark, thick cloud, disappeared. Nothing could do away the idea of this phenomenon in the minds of the sailors. And on their relating the circumstances when they arrived in port, the story spread like wildfire, and the supposed phantom was called the Flying Dutchman.
Ooh, that's creepy.
Spooky. I love how I go to all this trouble to set the atmosphere and make it creepy, and then I'm like, spooky, and I just ruin it all. The next literary reference introduces the motif of punishment for a crime. So, in Scenes of Infancy in 1803, this is written by John Leyden. It is a common superstition of mariners that in the high southern latitudes on the coast of Africa, hurricanes are frequently ushered in by the appearance of a specter ship named the Flying Dutchman. The crew of this vessel are supposed to have been guilty of some dreadful crime in the infancy of navigation and to have been stricken with pestilence and are ordained to still traverse the ocean on which they perish till the period of their penance expire.
Oh, that doesn't sound very fun for them.
Nope. You did a terrible thing and now you're doomed to roam the seas forever. This is very much where Pirates of the Caribbean got its idea for the story from.
Yeah. Although if they like being on the sea, then maybe it's not a punishment.
The whole having a lover on land and all these other things and Davy Jones and stuff, basically a lot of these myths and legends get turned into plays, and then from those plays we get Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
So Thomas More, born 1779, places this vessel in the North Atlantic in his poem written on passing Deadman's Island in the Gulf of St. Lawrence late in the evening. September 1804. Fast gliding along a gloomy bark, her sails are full, though the wind is still, and there blows not a breath in her sails to fill. A footnote adds, the above lines were suggested by a superstition very common among sailors who call this ghost ship, I think, the Flying Dutchman. According to some sources, 17th century Dutch captain Bernard Fokke, I assume, Fokke. I have, because we have an international audience, which I'm very grateful for. People know when I'm saying things wrong. And that is both funny and also, what's the right word? I'm not necessarily sad about it, but I don't know. Maybe a tiny little bit sad, just because if I had to look all of these things up and memorize how to pronounce them, it would take me longer than I couldn't research the episodes properly if I did the pronunciations well.
And most of the time you're looking up a pronunciation and there's like 5 different ways.
5 different ones, and you go, well, which one is the right one?
Yeah, so you just have to kind of go over one sometimes. I do the same thing and it's difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's rough. So Fokke was renowned for the speed of his trips from the Netherlands to Java and was suspected of being in league with the devil. The first version of the legend is this story, which was printed in Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine for May of 1821, which puts the scene as the Cape of Good Hope. This story names the Dutchman's captain as Henrik von der Decken and introduces the motifs, elaborated by later writers, of letters addressed to people long dead being offered to other ships for delivery, but if accepted, will bring a misfortune, which that is so scary. Because they're writing to their dead besties, or let's say they're not even writing to people they know. Let's say they're writing to your own great grandfather or grandmother or something. You recognize the name on the letter and you're all chilled, and then suddenly bad luck starts befalling you.
Yeah.
It's spooky. It's good storytelling. It's quite scary. So the legend goes that Vanderdecken had sworn to round the Cape of Good Hope, though it should take until the Day of Judgment, because back in the day, this was an incredibly dangerous stretch of sea, and a lot of vessels were wrecked trying to make these specific crossings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, rough seas.
Mm-hmm. So the Flying Dutchman was an Amsterdam vessel, meaning that she set out from Amsterdam specifically and sailed out of port 70 years ago. Her master's name being Vanderdecken. He was a staunch seaman and would have his own way in spite of the devil. For all of that, never a sailor under him had reason to complain, though how it is on board with them, nobody knows. The story is this, that in doubling the Cape, they were a day long trying to weather the Table Bay. However, the wind headed them and went against them more and more, and Vanderdecken walked the deck swearing at the wind. Just after sunset, a vessel spoke to him, asking him if he did not mean to go into the bay at night. Vanderdecken replied, "May I be eternally damned if I do, though I should beat about here until the day of judgment." And to be sure, he never did go into that bay, for it is believed that he continues to beat about these seas still, and will do so long enough.
Oh dear.
Mm-hmm. This vessel is never seen but foul weather along with her. So it's like a herald of terrible weather, terrible luck. Basically, you see the Flying Dutchman and bad things happen, is where we are at this point in the lore. So then we get more sightings in the 19th and 20th centuries. And this is what this kind of folklore fascinates me, because when it goes on for hundreds of years, it's hard to ignore it then.
Yeah, definitely.
And when it's recorded sightings and not just poems, it gets harder and harder to ignore it.
Mm. That's why it becomes so famous.
Exactly. So there have been so many in the 19th and the 20th. A really well-known sighting was by Prince George of Wales, the future King George V. He was on a 3-year voyage during his late adolescence in 1880 with his elder brother, Prince Albert Victor of Wales, and their tutor, John Neil Dalton. They temporarily shipped into HMS Inconstant after the damaged rudder was repaired. It sounds like it was named well. And their original ship, the 4,000-ton corvette Bacchante. The prince's log, indeterminate as to which prince due to later editing before publication, records the following for the pre-dawn hours of 11th of July, 1881 off the coast of Australia. July 11th, 4 a.m. The Flying Dutchman crossed our bows. A strange red light as of a phantom ship all aglow in the mist of which the light, the masts, spars, and sails of a brig 200 yards distant stood out in strong relief as she came up on the port bow, where also the officer of the watch from the bridge clearly saw her, as did the quarterdeck midshipman, who was sent forward at once to the forecastle. But on arriving, there was no vestige nor any sign whatever of any material ship was to be seen, either near or right away to the horizon, the night being clear and the sea calm. 13 persons altogether saw her. At 10:45 a.m., the ordinary seaman who had this morning reported the Flying Dutchman fell from the forepost mast, crossed trees, onto the top gallant forecastle, and was smashed to atoms.
Wow. So it's not just seen in one specific area then, it's seen like all over the place.
It's seen all over the place.
Yeah, because that one was Australia.
Yeah. So wow. Australia, Africa. I feel like I've heard some sort of North American bound ones as well from around the 20th century, I think, although it's not in this particular article.
That's cool for the legend because it's like it's still just sailing around. It's not just, oh, you see it in this specific place because it's where something happened to it and it's like reliving that thing. It's like it's still there and it's just sailing around the world. That's cool.
Never at rest, always wandering. But in this case, instead of wandering, it's sailing.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. It's also wild when you have these
scary
written accounts. Yeah, written accounts by people who are very famous. And then these things become like historic record. And in this case, the person who saw the ship fell and died.
Yeah.
So the association with like death and bad luck kind of stays very true to form. And it makes me think of the ghost ship episode of Supernatural, where if you see it, you get killed.
Yeah, that part of it is scary. That isn't cool, but like the legend, I like the legend of it.
You like the legend, yeah, of course.
Yeah, but it's definitely scary. Like you wouldn't want to see it because then bad luck.
Bad things, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to tell you some scary truths about
Cool.
the VOC. Because we know that the Flying Dutchman, is kind of linked to the VOC, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So, between 1602 and 1796, the VOC sent nearly 1 million Europeans to work in the Asia trade on 4,785 ships and netted for their efforts more than 2.5 million tons of Asian trade goods and slaves. By
Yeah.
contrast, the rest of Europe combined sent only 882,412 people from 1500 to 1795, and the fleet of the English, later British East India Company, the VOC's nearest competitor, was a distant second to its total traffic with 2,690 ships and a mere 1/5 of the tonnage of goods carried by the VOC. Now remember, in this case, goods are also people. The VOC enjoyed huge profits from its spice monopoly and slave trading activities through most of the 17th century. Now, why am I bringing up that? Well, I'm bringing it up because the Flying Dutchman is kind of intrinsically connected to colonialism. And there are some interesting papers that have been written discussing that. We also don't always think about the sources of our spices and the blood price, literally, that was paid so that we have things like cinnamon or things that would
Yeah.
have really only been available in Asia.
Even
And
tea and things like that.
tea, coffee, tobacco, sugar. And so in America, the American slave trade, there was a triangle between tobacco, sugar, and the slave trade. And the making of rum as well is like really deeply linked to all of this. So why I'm bringing it up is because we're talking about ghost ships. And while the I'm so delighted. I'm going to have to try and contain myself so that it's like sense that's coming out of my mouth. While I am talking about ghost ships, and ghost ships are always linked to pirates, I have an excuse to tell you about the ultimate pirate. Okay. We always hear about Blackbeard, blah blah blah, this pirate, that pirate, this guy. But I am going to knock your socks off because not everybody knows about her. She's getting more popular now. Her story is getting told better now that we're more interested in her story. But
Mm-hmm.
still, I will never not talk about her at any excuse. So
We've got a lady pirate.
she is a lady pirate, and she is incredible. And in this essay, I will show how one Asian woman was so kick-ass that she sent the colonizers and her own shitty government packing. So, Ching Shih was arguably, I think, pretty much emphatically the best pirate ever. And I love her because what she did was she was sold off into effectively slavery when she was younger because she was very poor. She was forced to do sex work. And she ends up either through her own machinations or just luck catching the ire of a very powerful pirate. And what he didn't realize, in my opinion, this is just my own storytelling. I don't think he knew what he was getting in this bargain because she is actually a genius. And when she got her foothold in on this ship and she's watching him run this ship, she realizes how things should be done. And depending on which version of the story you believe, from memory, either her husband dies of natural causes or she takes on a younger lover and conspires to have him do away with her husband. Now, because this is a story about a woman who's very powerful, I always question things when there are
Yeah.
elements that make her out to be more villainous. She was a pirate queen, so she did not have on silk gloves. And I certainly will not pretend that she did. But what I will say is when she took over the ship, the reason why she became so unbelievably powerful was because instead of just extorting people, she basically said, "Hey, do you want Medicare? Do you want health care? Do you want your women? Do you want women? Do you want to be respected? Because if men touch you on my ship in a way that you did not consent to, I will kill them.
Yeah.
So if you're on my ship and you're a woman, or if you're part of this organization, You're a queen, okay? And if a man disrespects you, off with his head. She set up a feminist monarchy, is the best way that I can describe it. But instead of it just being this kind of like far-reaching dream, it was very literal and very real. And she was really wise because she realized what she needed was numbers in order to fight the Navy, in order to fight the colonizers that were coming to try to take her roots and her seas. She went to fishermen and all different kinds of boats of all different sizes and said, "Babe, would you like money? Would you like me to take care of you with doctors? Do you want access to doctors? Do you want someone to fight for your rights?" Maybe not literally fight for your rights, but she was just like, well, I suppose she was, because it was a conglomeration. It was like a merry band of thieves. She's Robin Hood, basically. That's the best way that I can describe her from my take. Now, I'm not a historian. I have an English and film degree. I like history and I love reading it. I love relating it, but I just want to make that clear. So take what I say with a grain of salt, and do your own research. I feel like that's responsible. So while she didn't encounter them, the VOC started falling out of power about a decade before she really came into her power. But they did have dealings in her area, and they did try to kind of manipulate things, because to get access to this part of China was to get access to things like really important pieces of trade. So China has silk and spices that the West is sort of desperate for. China has tea. China has all these things that the West really, really wants and are super, super valuable. So it's one of the places that the Brits, the Dutch, and a load of other white colonial forces are always trying to break into. And when it was her time, she absolutely kicked their asses. So, Ching Shih, also known as Zheng Yizhao, was the legendary commander of the Red Flag Fleet, which dominated the South China Sea from 1807 until 1810. Her Red Flag Fleet clashed with the Qing Dynasty Navy, the Portuguese Navy, and the British East India Company. Not the Dutch VOC, like I was saying, but what was left of it via the Dutch mercenary colonial arm did try to fight her in the form of hired mercenaries under the multiple colonial powers who thought that they could take her on. I want you to know that she just destroyed them. She controlled an estimated 40,000 to 70,000 pirates and more than 300 ships, an armada that rivaled many national navies of the time.
Whoa.
Right.
That is like having an army.
She did. She controlled China. When it was time for her to retire, she went to the emperor and was like, "Hello, I am in charge of you now. I'm going to go over here. And because I'm going to go over here and you're going to leave me alone and I'm going to have a lot of money, I'm not going to like snap your empire because my navy is bigger than yours." So her Red Flag Fleet was the largest pirate confederation in history, with an estimation of 1,800 ships and 80,000 pirates under her command in total by the end of her reign. This force was so powerful, she dominated the entire South China Sea. So she was like, "You guys can play here. I will take the entire sea. Thank you." She ultimately negotiated a favorable amnesty with the Qing government in 1810 and retired peacefully, owning a gambling house in Guangzhou until her death. Wait, Guangzhou? Maybe. I don't know. It's Chinese. Not good at it. Also, Chinese has lots of different dialects, so I don't know which dialect that is that I'm not speaking, but I'm not speaking it. And my footnote just says that is what happens when you show the emperor that you literally control the sea and are not scared of the Navy, like, at all. Yeah. I firmly believe that this is the in conclusion of my in this essay. I will. In conclusion, I firmly believe that the Flying Dutchman will never dare to show itself in her territory, because I believe that her spirit would sink that ship straight to hell like the badass pirate queen that she is. End of essay.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk about the best pirate queen of all time.
So the Flying Dutchman goes everywhere in the world except the China Sea.
Except the China Sea.
Cool. I liked that essay.
Thank you. We hit the Flying Dutchman. We hit creepy ghost ship stories. We found real accounts. Then we talked about colonialism and slavery. And then we were like, but she would destroy them because she was incredible. The end. A woman was the best pirate ever.
Yeah.
Why did no one tell? We know why no one told us, but I'm just saying we should all know about her because she's fucking epic.
Yeah, I like that. I like pirate stories. I feel like, modern day pirates and old ones, but modern day pirates are super scary. But and I'm guessing, old pirates would have been at the time, but there's something about the stories of them, and because I think it's because we're so removed from that now. It's like 17th century, 18th century kind of times. Yeah, I like them. Anytime
Well,
they show
I
up and
love
stuff.
pirates because when I was doing research, again, I'm not a historian, but I am a nerd and I am very attention to detail oriented and I will read for days. My reading of actual historians has led me very much to believe that piracy in the golden era was maybe 40% of what we're taught in school and about 60% of something else. And the 60% that we're not taught is that actually a lot of these pirates were rebels who wanted to live better lives and were establishing their
Yeah,
own rules on the sea. So just like she did. She came from being someone who had been enslaved to freeing people, to getting fishermen who were being specifically oppressed by different arms of the government to band together and become more powerful than the government, literally to
yeah,
organize healthcare on the water, and also a set of rules that meant that women in her society were respected and safe.
yeah,
If
yeah.
you,
Definitely in her case.
yeah, if you make your own rules and you do it successfully enough, you can create your own society. And so I've read about like basically gay pirate kingdoms where it's a bunch of gay, a lot of the accounts are dudes who are gay. Um and like just living free and being gay and doing crimes because that's why, and
Doing
especially the
crimes.
bisexual community, you get like be gay, do crimes. Um and all the pirate core stuff, I'm pretty sure that is exactly why. Uh but like it's it's fascinating that it appears to be part of our history as like queer people. And I fucking love that. I love the idea of gay
Yeah,
pirates looking fabulous in silk, okay, making huge accessories out of the hats, but also being great at what they were doing, which was crime. They were very creative at the crimes. There's also gay female pirates who I love, and feminist pirate queens who I also love. Um, so some of them were rebelling against colonizers. So like Grania O'Malley, who we hear as Grace O'Malley, was very much in rebellion of the English taking over Ireland. Um, and she was such a badass. I've read an account where she goes to meet Queen Elizabeth to have a little heart to heart, basically a negotiation, right? And Elizabeth ends up, I think, being low key wowed by her because you've got to think that Elizabeth made battlefield speeches and really wanted to be more of a warrior queen than I think she was allowed to be. Um, but she was very much a leader in her time in a way that women never really were before that I can find like a record of. She's the first one that I can think of that's like, no, this is my kingdom, bitches. So she's there with Grania, and for whatever reason, I don't know if Grania had a cold, whatever the reason may be, Elizabeth offers her, I think it was supposed to be a dish. She offers her this silk handkerchief to wipe her face with, right? And Grania uses the handkerchief and then throws it into the fire. And Elizabeth and the courtiers are shocked because the queen gave you a gift and you just burned it in front of her face. And Grania says, oh, in Ireland, we don't keep dirty things. It's like, it's such a mic drop moment. And I think Elizabeth loved her because she left
cool.
and she got what she wanted out of the conversation. But yeah, pirates have layers to them. Um, Historic pirates for sure do.
I enjoyed those stories.
Thank you. I'm very glad that you did.
Right, I am going to end the episode just with a few little legends from my local area that all sound very, very similar. So I thought I'd put them together. So
Mm.
they are basically all short, very short, spooky stories that are all kind of similar, and they all include rituals performed in, near, or around churches in Norfolk.
Oh.
And these are all from the same article that I'll link in the show notes. So the first one, at St. George's Church in Great Yarmouth, there was a legend that claimed that if you ran around the 18th century churchyard 3 times without stopping and then shouted "Bloody Queen Mary,"
Oh.
the face of Mary Tudor would appear at the nearest window. Daredevils were still attempting this up to the late 1800s.
It confuses me sometimes because like you have Mary Queen of Scots and then you have another Mary and she
Mary
was
Tudor.
queen and she burned all the Protestants.
Yeah, I think that might be Mary Tudor. That might be this one
I think that's Mary Tudor, yeah.
because she's the bloody Mary.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that 3 times.
One more time, go on.
No. So then at the second one, at All Saints Church in Swanton Morley, it is said that Satan can be summoned if you run around the church at midnight and then whistle through the keyhole, at which point the Dark Lord will appear. And a variation of this involves whistling through the grill that looks into the crypt under the chancel again, after circling around the church at the witching hour.
Presumably counterclockwise.
Yeah. There's a lot of running round churches or graveyards in these.
Yeah. So Widdershins, which is counterclockwise, there are a lot of superstitions that doing that summons malevolence. So like my mom used to tell me, sometimes I get annoyed with my sister and I kind of pace around her and I wasn't thinking anything about it. But if I ever went around her counterclockwise, she'd always tell me that I was walking Widdershins around my sister and I was like cursing her basically.
Yeah.
So that was along the same lines that she'd be like, if I was angry, I wasn't allowed to point at people because pointing, you can like direct the energy and hex the person. These are
Yeah.
all the superstitions that I grew up with.
Mm.
So running around a church in a way that is designed to bring on bad energy would make sense as like some kind of dark invocation. And whistling, we know, is supposed to summon spirits, right? So you're
Yeah.
going counterclockwise around a sacred space and then you're summoning something by whistling. And then graveyards, I think a lot of people associate death and the underworld with hell.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Yeah.
the lore kind of stacks up to you're doing a dark ritual and the devil's coming up out of hell through the graveyard, and the graveyard just acts as the gateway.
Yeah. Which is weird when you think about it, because like churches, you would assume people who are buried in churchyards would go to heaven, so you'd associate it more with
Yeah.
heaven than hell. But yeah, you do. Yeah. Right, I've got one last one. This is my favourite. So, hidden amongst a thicket of trees at East Somerton are the ruins of St Mary's Church. Built in the 15th century, only the tower and walls of the nave remain. Local folklore tells of a witch who was buried alive in the nave of the
Rude.
church by villagers. Her wooden leg grew into a massive oak tree, which
Good for
destroyed the
you, girl.
church,
Good for you.
and still stands in the nave. Legend has it that if you walk around the tree 3 times and call her name, the witch's spirit will be released.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah, so her leg grew into a tree. And I can't remember if I've been here. I've definitely seen pictures of it, but there's like a tree literally growing through the middle of the church
That's extremely
ruins.
cool.
Yeah. But they all seemed quite similar, so I thought I'd just put them all together.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that a lot. Graveyard lore.
Yeah.
We've also got it's a spooky tree growing through a graveyard like in Stull Cemetery.
Yeah, I thought of that as well when I read
Mm,
that with that last one. It did remind me of that.
it's a very supernatural episode.
Yeah. They would definitely go to that church.
That's very spooky. I love it. I've never heard of that, but I love the idea of a woman getting her revenge because they buried her alive. And it sounds like she was a disabled woman because she had a wooden leg. So I love the
Yeah.
idea of a disabled
That's probably why they thought she was a witch.
Because she just had she managed to get a wooden leg. I don't know. They're awful, isn't it? They'd be like, oh, that woman's lame. That woman's old. That woman doesn't want a husband.
I bet she
Kill
didn't
her.
know witchcraft at all. She was an old lady and, I don't know, probably just said something to a man once.
And he was like, ew. She spoke.
Rich.
Kill her. It reminds me of that meme of two women smoking on their own like witch pyres, and one of them says to the other one, what did you do? And she says, I had an opinion. And she's like, yeah, that'll do it.
Exactly.
So yeah, I thrive upon her leg grew into an oak tree and broke the church. That's it's victory, because you like never hear about like the witches getting victory in the end.
Yeah,
it's my favorite. The pirate queen bit and the ghost witch bit with the tree. Yeah, it's my favorite.
So yes, that's our 4th part. We've got one more Halloween episode, which is going to come out on Halloween next week. So yeah,
that's wild. If you guys want us to do this again next year, make sure that you comment on Spotify specifically, because while you can get us in other places, you might be listening to us on Apple or wherever, we actually see the Spotify comments because we actually get notified, which is why it's so good to comment on Spotify, because Laura will actually see it, whereas the other platforms, we don't really get notifications from them. So it's very helpful that you listen to us wherever you listen to us. We love you for that. But in terms of like, if you want to say something, definitely always comment on Spotify. That's massively helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, we can reply on Spotify as well, but we can't on the others.
Exactly. So let us know if you want us to do this again next Halloween. And yeah, I'm excited. Only 1 week to go.
Yeah, I like how we're doing lore. I feel like it's bringing our community, if you like, all together. Like it.
Yeah, because you get the witchy stuff and the supernatural stuff all together.
Yeah.
And it is nice to have everybody writing in too, because we got so many replies and so many responses. And I think given the rate that we're going through the stories at, we're doing like 6 an episode roughly, something like that. And we're still not going to finish it this Halloween. I don't think we'll still have leftover stuff to do on other bonus episodes. So
yeah, but that's good. We almost want like a backlog so we can do some of these if we feel like it.
This is what I'm saying. We're getting loads, but we would like to keep getting a good amount, because then we'll never run out. So that means that we could always do a bonus episode at the drop of a hat with just really fun stuff.
If we had enough, we could do them like every month.
Yeah, we could. So if that's something you want, write in and tell us, and keep sending us stories.
Yeah.
Should we say goodbye?
Yeah. Bye.
Happy hauntings. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe. We would be very grateful. And if you know someone who would enjoy it, please share.
You can find us on Instagram at the Witches of Letters podcast, or you can email us at thewitchesofletters@gmail.com.
Until next time, stay safe out there, have each other's backs, and always keep fighting.